Okay, I want you to picture something for me. And I have to warn you, it's going to get a little weird.
A little weird.
Maybe a little gross.
We usually ease people into these topics, but today, nope, straight into the deep end.
Absolutely. So imagine a witch. But forget the pointy hat, the broomstick, all of that. I want you to imagine a witch from the beliefs of the Fang people in Cameroon.
Okay.
According to the source material we're looking at today, specifically from anthropologist Pascal Boyer, the Fang believe that witches have this extra internal organ.
An actual organ, not like a metaphor.
No, it's distinct from a liver or a heart. It's described as an animal-like organ.
Right.
And here's the kicker. This organ can detach itself from the witch's body at night. It literally flies away.
It flies away.
Sometimes it rides on a banana leaf.
Yeah.
And its job is to go and, ruin other people's crops or poison their blood.
That is a vivid, terrifying image.
It gets even darker. Apparently these witches, or their flying organs, they hold banquets where they actually devour their victims.
Wow. It sounds like something from a surreal horror movie.
To us, maybe. But for the Fang, this isn't some fairy tale to scare kids. It's a real mechanical explanation for misfortune. If your crops die, it's not bad weather.
It's that flying internal organ.
Exactly. Now, here is where the story gets really, really interesting. Boyer, the author, he's telling this story about being at a very fancy dinner in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm. High society academic types.
Totally. Candelabras, the whole thing. And he starts sharing these stories about the Fang witches.
And at this dinner, there's a prominent Catholic theologian.
Right. A man who spent his entire life studying religious doctrine. And this theologian turns to Boyer, completely sincere, and says, this is what makes anthropology so difficult. You have to explain how people can believe in such nonsense.
Nonsense. He actually used that word.
That's the word. And Boyer says he was just, struck dumb. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't find the words.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it?
It is. I mean, here's a man who likely believes that 3 persons are actually one person, the Trinity, or that all human suffering stems from 2 ancestors eating a piece of fruit.
To the Fang, that would sound just as much like nonsense as the flying banana leaf organ.
And that tension, that baffled theologian, is the launch pad for this entire deep dive. We aren't here to debate which religion is true.
No, not really.
We're not here to mock anyone. We are taking a stack of cognitive science research to answer this huge question. Why? Why do we believe?
It's the universal question.
Yeah.
You go from Cameroon to Cambridge, and the human mind is just fascinated by the supernatural.
And we are going to look at the machinery under the hood. Not the theology, but the biology and psychology that makes belief even possible.
Right.
Now, I think if I stopped someone on the street and asked, why do people believe in ghosts? They'd probably give me the standard skeptic's answer.
Oh, people are gullible.
Yeah, or they're just scared of death, so they make up stories to feel better.
The comfort blanket theory. Or just, failure of critical thinking.
Exactly. I even catch myself thinking it sometimes. I see someone reading their horoscope and I think, okay, their critical faculties are just taking a nap.
They aren't fact-checking their own brain. But the author calls this the myth of mental negligence. It's this assumption that religious belief is a failure of reasoning.
And you're saying the research suggests that's completely backward.
That's what the source argues, yeah.
How can believing in a flying witch organ not be a failure of reasoning?
Well, it's because of how the mind actually processes reality. Boyer uses this metaphor, he calls it the judicial model, to explain how we think our minds work.
Okay, walk me through that.
So imagine your mind is a courtroom. You have a representation attorney who comes in and presents an idea, like flamingos reproduced by inhaling diesel fumes.
Okay, weird example, but I'm with you.
Then you have a belief judge on the bench. The judge looks at the evidence, sees there's none, and just slams the gavel. Objection. Rejected.
Right, because it's absurd.
Exactly. And when skeptics look at religious people, they think the judge in that person's head must be asleep at the wheel.
But you're saying that whole model is wrong.
It's completely wrong for, the vast majority of our mental life. We don't really have a judge.
And what do we have?
Boyer compares it to our visual system. Think about when you go to the zoo.
Okay, I'm at the zoo.
You see an elephant standing by a tree. Does your brain have an attorney present a case? Your Honor, based on the gray color of the trunk, I propose there is an elephant.
No, I see the elephant.
Exactly. There's no trial. Your visual system takes in chunks of data, color, depth, shape, and sends it to the rest of your brain as a confirmed fact. You don't decide to see it.
You're just presented with the reality of the elephant.
Hmm. And the aha moment here is that these supernatural beliefs might work more like that, like vision.
They bypass the judge entirely.
They're processed by these underground mental systems that present them to your conscious mind as just reality. You don't decide to believe in ancestors any more than you decide to see the color red.
That's actually kind of unsettling. It means we have way less control over what we believe than we think.
And that brings us to the core concept for today. It's a term that sounds a little dry, but it's the key to everything. Aggregate relevance.
Aggregate relevance. Okay, break that down for us. It sounds like something from a business meeting.
Huh, yeah. But think of it this way. A belief isn't one big pillar holding up a roof. It's more like a web. A belief feels true, not because you ran an experiment, but because it activates a whole bunch of different mental systems all at once.
The more systems that light up, the more real it feels.
Exactly. The source uses this analogy about children that I found really helpful.
Oh, yeah, this was great.
Think about our general belief. Children are underdeveloped versions of adults.
Which is true. We all know that.
But why do you believe it? Did you read a textbook on developmental biology? Probably not.
No.
You believe it because your intuition confirms it constantly without you even thinking about it.
Like when I talk to a toddler, I automatically change my voice. I use simpler words. I don't plan it. It just happens.
Right. That's your language system adjusting on the fly. Now, what if you're walking with that toddler and a truck rumbles by? What do?
I grab their hand immediately.
That's your threat detection system kicking in. And if that kid draws on the wall, you might get mad, but you're not going to call the cops.
No.
That's your moral system saying they don't know any better.
So I have the language part, the danger part, and the moral part all independently agreeing with each other. This is a child.
Exactly. That is aggregate relevance. The belief is supported by a dozen invisible pillars. You don't need a judge to tell you it's a child. Your whole brain is already screaming it.
Okay, I totally get it for kids. But how do we make the leap to invisible ancestors or spirits?
Right.
How does aggregate relevance make a ghost feel real?
So let's take the Quayo people on the Solomon Islands. They believe in the Adelo ancestor spirits. And this isn't just some vague feeling. It's a belief propped up by very specific systems.
The source brings up the social exchange system.
Yeah.
That's the part of our brain that handles deals, right? Tit for tat.
Precisely. We are wired for transactions. So for the Quayo, if someone gets sick, they might sacrifice a pig to an ancestor to ask for a cure.
Okay. But what if the person doesn't get better or dies?
That is the crucial test. Now, if you were thinking like a scientist, you'd say, well, the experiment failed. The sacrifice didn't work. Therefore, the ancestor isn't real.
Right. Hypothesis rejected.
But that's not how our social exchange system works. I mean, if you pay a contractor to fix your roof and he doesn't show up, do you suddenly think contractors don't exist?
No, I think that guy stiffed me or I paid the wrong guy.
Exactly. You see it as a failed transaction. So the Quayo intuition is, I must have sacrificed to the wrong ancestor, or someone else made a better offer. The failure actually reinforces the system.
That is fascinating. So the failure doesn't disprove the ghost.
It just proves the ghost is a tough negotiator.
And this layers with other systems, right? Like the moral system.
The Quayo have sacred spots where you absolutely cannot urinate. It's a taboo.
And if you do it, I assume you feel guilty or anxious.
A sudden pang of fear, yeah. Now, you could interpret that as, I'm worried about hygiene. But the Quayo brain interprets it through the lens of the ancestor. The ancestor is watching me.
And then you have what's called intuitive psychology.
Right. The part of the brain that's always wondering, does she know I'm lying? Or what is he thinking? We apply that same software to the spirits. Does the ancestor know I cheated?
It activates the exact same neural pathways.
As wondering if your neighbor knows you cheated. So by the time you add all these up, the transaction logic, the moral gut check, the paranoia, the belief is locked in. It's concrete.
This really makes you rethink that whole great man theory of religion, that it all comes from these special mystical prophets.
William James, the famous psychologist, he wrote The Varieties of Religious Experience, and he really thought religion came from the outliers.
The mystics, the visionaries, people hearing voices in caves.
And that the rest of us just get this kind of watered-down version of their experience.
But the cognitive science view is the complete opposite.
Totally. It says religion isn't about extraordinary experiences, it's about ordinary minds.
So you don't need to be a mystic, you just need to be human.
You just need the standard issue cognitive hardware. In fact, neuroscientists have spent years searching for a God spot in the brain, a specific region that lights up when you pray.
And did they find it?
Nothing.
But yeah.
It doesn't exist. When you think about God, you use the same areas you use to think about your parents or about justice or the weather. There are no special religious neurons.
It's just normal neurons doing a
That's a
remix.
great way of putting it.
So let's zoom out a bit. We've talked about how the brain did this, but when did this start? The source brings up this idea of cognitive fluidity.
Right there, from the archaeologist Stephen Mithen. And for this, we have to go back in time, like 50,000 to 100,000 years ago.
Okay, set the scene. What was the human brain like before this big bang of culture?
Mithen uses this great analogy. Imagine the early human mind was like a cathedral with separate, soundproof chapels.
Okay, separate rooms.
In one room, you had social intelligence, understanding gossip, who's in charge, all that. In another room, totally locked off, you had natural history, understanding animals, plants, seasons. And in a third, technical intelligence, how to make a tool.
So I could make a hand axe and I could gossip with my friend, but those two worlds didn't mix.
The wires didn't cross. You couldn't think, I'll make a really cool tool, technical, that looks like a bison natural, to impress my crush, social.
And then what happened?
Then something happened. The walls came down, the doors opened, we developed cognitive fluidity, and suddenly all these modules started sharing data.
And this is where things get wild.
This is where we get art. You can paint a bison on a cave wall because you're combining your technical skill with your natural knowledge.
But it's also where we get religion. How does that follow?
Well, what happens when you mix the social module, which understands people and intentions, with the natural module, which understands trees and rocks?
You start thinking the tree has a personality.
You get a talking tree, or a spirit in the river. Or what happens if you mix social with physics?
You get a person who can walk through walls, a ghost.
Exactly. So religion is basically a byproduct of our brain deciding to go open plan. It just became capable of combining concepts in ways that created these supernatural ideas.
And because those ideas fit our mental tools so well, as we talked about with aggregate relevance, they stuck.
They stuck around.
This brings us to a distinction the author makes that I think will surprise people. He calls religion natural and science unnatural.
I can just hear the scientists bristling at that.
Right. I mean, science is the study of nature. How can it be unnatural?
He means natural in the sense of cognitive ease, what's easy for the brain to do. As we've seen, believing in an invisible agent, that just flows downhill. It uses systems we already have.
But science...
Science is constantly fighting uphill. It's incredibly unnatural because it forces us to ignore our gut intuitions.
Give me an example.
Physics. If I drop a bowling ball and a feather, your intuition screams that the heavy thing falls faster.
Yeah, of course. Because it's heavy.
But physics says, no, ignore your gut. In a vacuum, they fall at the same rate. You have to actively suppress your intuition to get to the science.
Or like in biology. Intuition says a cat is a cat, a dog is a dog. They're fixed things.
And evolution says, actually, over millions of years, that fish became a lizard, which became a cat. Which is just mind-bending. It goes against every instinct we have.
So religion is swimming with the current of our evolution. Science is swimming against it.
That's the argument. And it explains why science is so hard to teach and superstition is so hard to kill.
So we're coming to the end here. I want to loop back to that theologian. The guy at the dinner party who thought the Fang beliefs were nonsense.
The frustration of invisible hands.
That's the phrase the author uses. What does that mean?
It means we humans love a simple cause. We love a conspiracy. We want to say religion was invented by priests to control people.
Or it's just fear of death. We want a visible hand moving the pieces on the board.
But the reality is, it's a frustration of invisible hands. It's evolution, it's cognitive fluidity, social exchange systems, memory limits. It's 1,000 different tiny pressures.
The author uses this visual of culture as a kind of soup.
Yeah. Imagine a giant soup with millions of ideas and stories floating around. Most of them just dissolve. They're forgotten.
But some are lumps. They refuse to dissolve.
And the religious concepts, the ghosts, the spirits, the flying organs, those are the lumps.
They survive not because they're true in a scientific sense,
but because they are perfectly shaped to hook onto our mental hardware. A story about an abstract force is forgettable. A story about a witch who eats you.
Grabs your threat detection, your social system, your fear, and it never lets go.
It's survival of the stickiest.
So, if I'm listening to this, whether I'm religious or an atheist, what do I take away from this?
I think it offers a bridge of empathy. If you're a skeptic, you can't just write off believers as stupid. They're running the standard human operating system. Their brains are doing exactly what brains evolved to do.
And if you're a believer,
It might explain why your faith feels so intuitive, so much like common sense. It's because it's woven into the very fabric of your cognition.
I want to leave everyone with the final thought from the source material because it really flipped my perspective on this. We spend so much time asking, how can people believe in magic in the age of science?
But Boyer argues that's completely the wrong question.
Right.
Given that we are wired for social exchange, for finding faces in the clouds, for fearing invisible agents, the real mystery isn't why we are religious.
The real mystery is...
The real mystery is how we ever managed to be scientific at all.
That's the thought I'm going to be chewing on. Our brains are built for gods and ghosts. Doing calculus is the anomaly.
We're basically hacking our own hardware to do science.
And it's a miracle we can do it at all.
It really is.
Well, on that note, we will let you get back to hacking your own hardware. A huge thank you to the work of Pascal Boyer for this framework.
It definitely changes how you see the world.
It does. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you in the next deep dive.